Hello and welcome back to In Conversation with Dr. Steve Cohen and Jaswant Singh, former foreign minister and one who has kept a very steady gaze on relations with the United States of America. We were talking about, in that short break, we were talking about the hype. There was a hype, say a few weeks ago. One heard the term deliverables. What is the deliverable package? And then suddenly one sensed that the deliverable packages were not being talked about. So where this hype and this anti-hype is coming from, I do not know. But what is the deliverable possible from this visit? Jaswant.
I don't know. I don't much care about going into the detail of it. And as I said, look, you can't live in permanent honeymoon.
Right.
This is the routine of marriage. You now deal with the day-to-day life of of the greatest power on earth and the greatest democracy, and it's the largest democracy, certainly, an economy in India that's on the move. They're very productive and dynamic non-resident Indian in the United States of America, or other connections, and concentrate on the nuts and bolts of relationship. Why do you always want the ecstasy of honeymoons? It's not necessary.
I agree totally with that, and I like the metaphor also. I think it's absolutely true. The strategic relationship is now, not, I won't say set, but it's between normal. It's a normal relationship. And then we have interest in common, some interest we differ. The nuts and bolts, things like delivery of technology by the Americans, all of these things will be accelerated by the visit, because presidential visits or prime ministerial visits force the bureaucracy to actually think about what the government's policy is and gets the bureaucracy in line with what the president or the prime minister wishes.
He uses a more feudal term. He doesn't say the bureaucracy. He said, let the Sherpas do it.
Sherpas, it's quite a routine phrase.
Well, you know, that's their job, and that's their job.
The President Bush came here, and in fact, wherever he went, he carried the baggage of full scope dominance, full spectrum dominance, and which turned out to be not a very realistic way to approach the world as we see, witness Iraq, witness Afghanistan. I have a feeling that a more realistic, or am I right, Steve, that a more realistic relationship is possible now that that particular hype is over, that this overreach is over, and India is just rising sufficiently, and therefore a real partnership is possible.
I'll say two things. First, you're right. The Bush administration perpetrated what was possibly the greatest strategic calamity in the last 50 years by an American president. Maybe Vietnam was up to that level. So we're paying for it now. You know, we're overextended. I had a friend in the Bush administration. I asked him about Iraq and Afghanistan. He said, we can do both. And that was the epitome of hubris. So we can't do both. We could barely do one, and we may not be able to do that. Secondly, I think that the Obama administration, well, let me stop at that point and then let Jaswant come.
Yeah, but that was what President Obama has inherited is really the greatest single challenge to American statecraft as it is to Indian statecraft. There is an overreach by United States of America, which is inherited by President Obama. That overreach focuses, is in fact centered on an area where we live. That overreach and its, I don't know what other word to use, its consequences, success of, or otherwise, directly impacts on India's future, India's national interest. The sad part of it is that whereas it directly impacts on India's future, I'm not so sure that India is so crucially or centrally involved in it as it ought to be, because the presence of Pakistan is a barrier. Pakistan today is holding a veto on the freedom of American policy in this. That is.
Why do you think that is true?
That is in fact a challenge to India's
diplomacy,
also to statecraft. It is this which I think should be the focus of the private conversations between two heads of government when they meet. Others are what you say when I say the Sherpas will deal with them, but that is true. That's their job. They will go through, they'll cross the T's and dot the I's and go through the agreements.
and whether 11 or the 16 entities will remain or not. That Steve, Pakistan. There are two images possible. That Pakistan, strapped to a nuclear weapon, is on the precipice, and therefore it has to be helped. Or a more sensible approach can be, look, there is a very serious problem in Pakistan. And we've all been saying, since the Bush days at least, that they're playing both sides of the street. They are playing both sides of the street. They don't know how to manage it. It is not being done only willfully, because they themselves have to manage, find their own equilibrium also. How does India respond? I know Sardar Manmohan Singh, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, has been very keen to stabilize relations with Pakistan, but I don't think we know where to begin, how to proceed, whom to talk to.
My next book is going to be called